Welcome, everyone. This is Elsie Kerns, and tonight I have Pam Younghans with me, and we are going to discuss this quantum shift coming up for 2023. So, Pam, welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Elsie.
I want to start by asking you, we have two major planets in retrograde, Mercury until like January 18th, and Mars, which is coming out next week, January 12th. So I wonder how these might be setting us up for this quantum shift.
Oh, great question. It's interesting. It's one of those things that makes me say, yes, there's some divine planning going on because it really is. If we're looking at the big shifts that are coming, both Saturn and Pluto are changing signs in March. And so this really is a time of completion. Both of them are finishing up their work in the signs that they're in right now. And when Mars is retrograde, we are in a process of review, going through how we might use our energy in a new way, how we might better align with our intuitive knowing rather than Mars is in Gemini, which is all about logical planning and all of that. So it's Mars retrograde has been giving us plenty of time to get more in touch with an intuitive place in us. It's been retrograde since October 30th. And as you said, Elsie, it'll go direct on January 12th. So we've had, quite an extended period of time where we've had opportunities to check in new ways before taking action. And the other thing that Mars retrograde has brought up is where we tend to act impulsively or out of anger or more from an ego-driven place rather than from a higher self place. And so this retrograde period has given us lots of opportunities to see how that works for us and how that doesn't work for us. So I love that. It's kind of this preparatory phase. And it's actually, Mars is looking over here at the slideshow for the class. I think Mars goes past its retrograde point. I think it's March 15th. And that's right before Pluto changes signs, the same, very close to the time that Saturn changes signs. So it's like there's an even bigger sense of new beginning, moving into new territory. And with Mercury retrograde, Mercury just went retrograde at the end of December, goes direct on January 18th. Again, it's this opportunity to review. With Mercury, it's a little bit different theme. It's how we communicate, how we think, how we process information. There's a little bit of similarity because Mars is in Gemini. Gemini is the sign of communication and logical, rational thinking. Mercury is the planet of communication and all of that. So there's a little bit of an overlap. And it's really giving us a great opportunity to rethink, replan, do some serious reconsidering of how we want to be going forward, who we want to be going forward, and how we want to use our mental capacity. One of the great quotes about Gemini is, are you in control of your mind, or is your mind in control of you? And so this has also been an opportunity for us to really look at that question in an interesting way. So I think it's just kind of not laying a foundation as much as giving us an opportunity to right the ship a little bit better, so that as we proceed into new territory, new waters, we've got a little bit clearer mental, emotional, energetic state.
Well, that gives us a good idea of, as you said, how this is laying that foundation. And I realize that many of these events will also have a direct correlation to an individual's personal chart. But this transition of Pluto into Aquarius for the first time in 225 years. Sounds like it's going to affect all of humanity, no escaping.
It most definitely will. Aquarius, Pluto is moving into Aquarius. Aquarius is the sign of society. It's the sign of progress. And the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, it did leave it 225 years ago, but the dates it was in Aquarius was 1778 to 1798. So there was a lot going on, the American Revolution, the French Revolution, lots of social change. And we're not going back to that world, but we're taking now the next step as Pluto re-enters Aquarius. And it's going to be interesting because Pluto's going to do this dance back and forth. It's going to enter Aquarius in March, going to go retrograde in May, go back into Capricorn in June. Later on in the year, it'll go back into Aquarius. In 2024, it'll do a little bit of a dance again. But it's very interesting because it's not just like we closed the door in the past. We still have some cleanup to do. But we're looking at Pluto is the great agent of transformation. He's the god of the underworld, the agent of death and rebirth. So there's a lot of shifts going on. And as you say, this is for everybody globally. And we all live as a part of society, even if we're kind of hermit-like or anything along those lines, and try to stay away from news or anything like that. We're still energetically connected with everyone. And Aquarius is the sign of community as well. So that's an interesting factor as far as the kinds of one of the areas changes are going to happen. But it is true that where Pluto is moving in our birth charts, by house, which represents an area of life experience, or if it relates to a planet, which represents some aspect of our personality, we're all going to feel it in somewhat different ways. And that's when it takes looking at an individual's chart to see what's really going on. But where Pluto makes that shift from Capricorn to Aquarius will be interesting to watch in each one of our charts in the area of life that's reflected. Going to be an interesting journey.
Yes, Pluto always sets up something interesting for sure. Now, when we use energy terms, I notice that you have jumped into quantum physics, quantum energy, because the energies of the earth are simply moving so fast. So we have ourselves in this three-dimensional electromagnetic energy, but we're moving faster and faster into that, as you described, that quantum shift, that quantum field. And it's almost like riding through Star Trek. So how would you comment about this quantum energy?
Well, it's interesting, and I'm going to say this at the beginning of the class too, but the way I get the titles for these classes, I don't sit there and think, oh, what would be good? Something comes to me, and then I have to look it up. I have to say, oh, well, that makes sense. So I've actually kind of been researching the words quantum and quantum field and quantum theory, and a lot of it, I'm not a scientist, a lot of it just is not making a lot of sense to me. But I did find some cool things about how, it's bringing light into form, and there's a lot of it that actually kind of expands on that whole theory of ascension. Mm-hmm. And it kind of boggles the mind. I mean, the whole quantum theory boggles my mind. And I think that's a part of what we're moving into. And I think one of the manifestations we'll see in the next 20 years, as Pluto moves to Aquarius, is more of a focus on the quantum healing rather than physical healing, that it becomes more energetically based as a general rule. Now, this isn't an overnight deal. You mentioned Star Trek. It's actually Star Trek. Yeah, The Next Generation. I'm sorry for a little segue here, but there's one of the episodes that continually comes into my mind with this. It's about this goddess who supposedly saved the world saved a world a long time ago, and now she's come back to, get her dues. But by the end of the story, we find out that she was a fraud, but what actually happened was that the people came together. They made the social change. Their legend said, oh, this goddess made it all happen. But when asked specifically, well, how did this change happen? How did that change happen? Did it magically occur overnight? And they say, no, we got committees together and we worked together and we cleaned up the air and we cleaned up the planet. And so it's that kind of thing. It's not a magical, wand, but in a sense it is, because it represents such a big shift for us. But we're the important elements of it. So anyway, sorry for the Star Trek, but you brought it up, so I got to go there.
Yeah, so one thing I love is when you sign up for the class, you get these calendars and they're all color coded. So what I love is it really tells you what days are very challenging and what to look out for. So you have a quick glance each day as to what to expect. And you don't have to be an astrology buff to understand it the way that you have it broken down into colors and what days are what I call really squirrely.
Really squirrely days. Yeah, and I spend a long time on those calendars
Yes.
as we're going through the class, because I explain which ones are most powerful and why, and give ideas on how to work with it. And so yeah, I think that's a real valuable part of the class, in addition to getting the bigger overview of, oh, and this is what's going on for society. The calendars can say, oh, and this is how I'm going to apply it to my life, to my personal experience.
Yes, I think it's an excellent tool. And so the webinar is this Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. your time.
Mhm.
And all of the times are listed. But what really is helpful for people is to think about how you might want to look at this and get an idea of what to expect astrologically, what the sun, moon, and stars are telling us. And also the fact that this is recorded. So you're going to receive an audio replay, a video replay. Pam is going to do a very beautiful graphic PowerPoint slideshow. You'll also have the calendars, and you'll be able to review this over the next couple of months. We're covering January through April 2023. And here is the link right on the screen. If you haven't already signed up, it's only $27 US, and we would love to have you be part of this event. So, Pam, how else might you suggest that people prepare, what they can do in their own life to prepare for the accelerated energy that we're experiencing, these tremendous upcoming events with Pluto and more?
That's a great question. I think, there are spiritual tools and healing tools that you teach, Elsie, that are really valuable. Anything that helps us ground, that helps us center. There were some energies that came in last night that, made me pretty dizzy, lightheaded and dizzy. And it actually, according to a lot of people, other people I touched base with, they had that experience as well. But I found after I ate a pretty hearty dinner that had a lot of sweet potatoes and potatoes in it. So a lot of those root grounding vegetables, that seemed to help a lot. There are lots of ways to ground and center. And I would certainly, encourage people to explore those kind of tools. And also, there is a sense that, it's something about a perspective too. Imagine going to a pool, a swimming pool that isn't heated. Now, if you try to jump in right away, it's just so cold that you can barely stand it. But if you put your feet in, they get used to it. You go in a little bit further, you get more used to it. Eventually, you're in the pool and you're swimming, and it doesn't even feel cold anymore. And that's the way that these energies work with all astrological, the big themes that come through, the big planetary energies that come through. It's the first wave of it is unfamiliar. And so we can feel a little bit more rocked by it, but we learn how to navigate those waves. And a part of what's happening is, of course, our energy is shifting. And as our energy shifts, we are more able to navigate the waves. But that's just a perspective to keep, that this is a process and we are growing into this process. It's, very similar to the solar flare energy. Some people are very overwhelmed by them. And yet I think over time, as they do their work with us, we learn how to receive those energies without being so overwhelmed. And it's like I mentioned this in today's journal, it is a detox process with the solar flares especially. So as things get cleared out, there's not as much to get caught up on. And so we do get better and better at handling what at first can seem kind of challenging.
Yes, so Pam, I'd also like to mention, I believe on your Facebook page, you keep people updated about the solar flares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something I'm really fascinated by, and what's fascinated me the most is that we're so sensitive to it. The last time there was solar maximum, 8 to 10 years ago, I don't remember feeling them as strongly as I am now. And most people I talk with are saying, wow, why didn't we feel this last time? We're getting more and more sensitive to these things. So I do my best to keep on top of it every day. I do post something every morning that talks about the current energies, what's been going on over the last 24 hours. I bring in the astrology for the day as well. So I'm hoping that that's really helpful. And then if there are events like a big solar flare or a geomagnetic storm, I do my best to post those in a timely fashion as well, so that people can check in and say, I feel this, what's going on? And then it's reassuring, not only to see that, oh, something is going on, but then to see the posts from the other people, as it was for me last night. Oh, I feel really dizzy too, or wow, that was big. Or so it feels like I feel like Facebook can be a great community, and that's what I try to make it to be, a very supportive place for people to come.
Well, in addition to all those solar flares, of course, Friday night we had that wolf full moon for January. So we're really riding a high wave between the solar flares and the full moon.
Yeah.
So, Pam, I'm really looking forward to being with you this Wednesday, January 11th, and we're going to be right on Zoom. It will be recorded for replay. You can sign up right through this link right here, Quantum Shift 2023.eventbrite.com. If you have any questions or any concerns, please contact me. I'm moderating behind the scenes for Pam, and I'll be glad to help you out. So, Pam, thanks so much for joining us. Great to see you.
Oh, it's great to see you, and I'm really looking forward to the class on Wednesday, and it'll be fun to see everybody there.
Yes, me too.
Okay.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Good night.
I can